And good morning, Katniss. Good morning, Tazika. Christy, hope your travel was safe. Hello, Arthur. Hello, Shimmer. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining my show. Thank you for being here for the long term and putting your trust in me. I would like to think that it is not something which is earned easily. My fantastic hair alone should not win people over easily. Watch, I'm going to curse myself, and it's all going to fall out in the next year. Today's show is titled Kim Iversen and Candace Owens, and there's many other people on the list, but they haven't deserved having their names called out. Continue the Ignore India Israel show. My name is Mark Kulak, KWIL-ACZ. It is November 10th, 2025, and we're going to be reviewing several news pieces from both the alt media landscape, which includes Kim Iversen and Candace Owens, about the, and I just love saying this, the elephant in the room, which is being ignored. I broadcast from just outside of Boston, the United States of America. My name, Housatonic, is a nod to a river that I've had many generations of my family grow up near or on. It is actually a hat tip and an acknowledgement to my own minor, albeit Native American roots, but I think which speak to many people which came to the United States of America. It means something like behind the tree, or over there behind the rock, or watch out, don't slip on the moss. I don't know what it stands for. It doesn't even really matter. I guess it's just a cool little hat tip. And broadcasting this show as a U.S. citizen, as an American, as someone with roots in the country going back to the beginning, I remind you, I do not believe in imperialism or exceptionalism. I simply believe in trying to be the best person I can be, and I hope I live near people who want to be the best they can be. And in fact, I want everyone around the world to be as proud and as in love with their family and as their neighbors as I am. And calling out dirty work elsewhere is not to be interpreted as a sense of exceptionalism or whatever, because I believe that most people in most countries are actually just trying to get by, as I am and as you probably are as well. And in some cases, the governments of some of these foreign countries are as divorced from their people as the elected officials in the United States are of their own people. I barely understand this political landscape game, but I understand enough to know how much I don't know and how much is clearly nonsense. And I encourage people to feel comfortable with admitting what you know and what you don't know. It's totally cool. Be comfortable admitting mistakes, etc. And there is a very long term. It goes back much longer than I think I even can admit right now. A collusion of sorts between India and Israel, which probably goes back to World War II and beforehand. The people of India, of course, do not have roots in England. But the modern nation definitely was, and forever will be for many, many more decades, having to live with the imprint of borders and everything else and law, which did come from England, which of course got it from somewhere else. And Israel, which itself is also a territory, which now a young nation still, which was also created through the law and vision that connects to England. So the fact that these two nations have a shared trajectory, and there has been a odd collusion, which goes back a long time, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise. And it is almost never spoken of, at least within the United States media. If you get on YouTube, you can find references, plenty of references, even Celebration. However, it comes out of mostly India news outlets and some Israeli news outlets. But this is never mentioned in the United States. And in the United States right now, in particular on the political right, the conservative right, Republican Party, mostly on social media, not mainstream sources, you'll see just a deluge right now. And it's personified or exemplified perfectly by Candace Owens and Kim Iversen of nonstop talk about Israel and Israel infiltration into the United States of America and what they allege and describe as Israeli control over the United States of America. And yes, there's a rational quantity of money that the United States spends on weapons and technology for Israel. And yes, there is the issues of dual citizenship and so on. There's a lot of things which I'm not in favor of, and I think most people should be questioning. And fine to call that out. However, where it goes from being, hey, this is good, to this is obviously misleading people, not helping people understand what's going on, is by not highlighting that India is, what do they say? Follow the money. India is following the population and following the money and following the future. They have the political capital. They have way more money. They have 100 times the population, if not much more. And they have vast quantities of resources, which they are accessing throughout the world right now. And even more so, they have a very easy to see and document infiltration into the United States government. Our National Institutes of Health director, Jayanta Bhattacharya, born in India, I think it's reasonable to question if his allegiance is 100% to the United States of America. I shared several videos that came out of other news outlets, mostly Indian television or Al Jazeera or something like that, highlighting the collusion or the cooperation between Israel and India, in particular over the last 2 years or year plus, going back to this October 7th large terrorist attack that happened in Israel. And when I use phrases such as that, that isn't me saying that I totally endorse the narrative 100%. It's just, what else am I going to call it, It's just common understanding or common way of referencing it, which was said to be from Hamas and said to be from Gaza and killing a certain number of Israelis, going all the way to that. And then India, very quickly jumping in and saying that they support Israel and Israel's right to defend itself. Then there's a Pakistan Muslim extremist terrorist attack in the region close to Kashmir, which is blamed on, again, Muslims, extremist Muslims. And, of course, India sees itself as the victim of that attack. And then India counterattacks Pakistan. Israel, of course, is on board with that. And all of these things are ongoing. Of course, you have an assassination of a attractive young Israeli couple in Washington, D.C., right in the middle of this that goes completely unaddressed. Like, what the heck was that all about? You have Charlie Kirk's comments and then the Charlie Kirk assassination in the middle of all of this. There's a lot of things happening above and beyond just Bibi Netanyahu supposedly being mad that Turning Point USA is going to say something bad about Israel. And I don't see a whiff of this anywhere in the alternative media. Now, I'm sure that there's way more levels than even I'm just referencing, but there's not even an acknowledgement of that. It's just Israel is full of Nazis that like to kill people, and the Jared Kushner and people who like Jeffrey Epstein give money to Israel so they can get rich while Israel rapes and mass murders children. It's like, come on. Come on. And no one will get into the rest of the nuances. Most people in Israel are just trying to get by, just like most people in Pakistan and India. You got your everyday jobs. You got kids to feed. You got in-laws that are never happy with you. You got kids that are overly rebellious. You got a thing growing on your back. People got their problems. And you got all of this other stuff happening. Which, who's this benefit? But anyways. So these are not statements about Israeli people or India people or whatever. These are just amorphous, aspecific powers around the world, which sometimes are just cooperating, and sometimes I think they're just conflict, etc. Anyways, not even a hat tip, not even an acknowledgement. India doesn't even exist. Candace Owens won't even say the word. And her show being promoted as the #1 show on YouTube, the #1 podcast, is nothing other than evidence that there's an enormous amount of money being spent right now to support one stupid narrative. And sometimes you don't even need to disprove things. You can just use your brain, okay? Evidence is not a replacement for thinking. If I were to show you 500,000 pages of books as well as videos that prove that I have the ability to transport myself to the moon in a second and then back so quick in this chair that you won't ever see it, should you believe me? Or should you just go, I think you're just showing massive quantities of bullshit? Sometimes you could just think, like, the possibility that all of this is happening because there's pedophiles in Israel is stupid. It's just stupid. But that is what is being promoted right now. So the more Candace Owens gets promoted, the more right I know I am, in particular about this. Now, whatever happened to Charlie Kirk, I don't know. My feelings based upon, Candace Owens is just saying, well, there was no blood. There was no bullet. And then it's like, well, there was no blood because the bullet got lodged in this way. The bullet didn't come out because it got lodged in that way. And it's like, well, gee, Candace Owens, maybe the simplest explanation is that there was only a certain amount of blood in the cartridge that popped, and that is why there was these rectangular things moving on the shirt, which was used to mount it. And maybe the bullet didn't come out because there was no bullet. It's funny how every box seems to get checked if you just consider the possibility that it was a fake. It really wasn't assassinated. But even so, even if I'm wrong, it's just one death. It's just one death, okay? I don't think he was actually killed. I think he's alive somewhere. And my suspicion is that he was put into protective custody, meaning I think Charlie Kirk probably kicked the hornet's nest. I think people probably wanted to kill him. For real. And I don't think it's because Bibi Netanyahu couldn't give enough money to pedophiles anymore because Charlie Kirk had a temper tantrum. Just say it. That is the least logical explanation one could possibly. If someone threw Sasquatch into the story, it would actually make more sense than that stupid narrative. But that's what's being pushed, as if they went into the back room somewhere and said, what's the stupidest thing we could possibly create as a backstory? And then we'll just keep talking about it. And the very fact that people sign up for this nonsense is in and of itself evidence of how stupid they are. Evidence is no replacement for thinking, as shown by how many unsolved crimes there are. Anyways, a narrative regarding Charlie Kirk, which would make sense, okay, if he was killed for real, or if it was a fake assassination, is what's the biggest pile of money in the room? What's the biggest population? I keep hearing follow the money, but no one actually follows the money. They just say, oh, look at this little pile of money here. Don't look any further. Is if you go back and you start looking at this British Empire, Israeli, India, and then, of course, the conflicts with Pakistan and so on, United Nations. If you go all the way back to 9/11, you start to see things that are way bigger than just Israel wants to enable pedophiles, and that's why Bibi Netanyahu gave money to Turning Point USA. Stupid. So I'm going to start off by showing a new video that came from Kim Iversen regarding the alleged genocide, which President Trump has said is happening in Nigeria. From what I've seen, could be wrong, from what I've seen, President Trump has completely mischaracterized what's happening in Nigeria as a genocide. It's not a genocide. Maybe involves more Christians than Muslims, but it's not a targeted genocide. Nigeria is half Christian, half Muslim. That's usually not a situation which lends itself to a genocide. You need a big majority, okay? Usually you don't see genocides when a country is split 50-50, 50-50. I mean, that would mean that even if they kill 1 million people, that means 99% of the Christians still remain. And even if they're peaceful Christians, okay, it's highly unlikely that they're just going to kick back and keep reading the Bible and allow the rest of the 99% or 120 million of them to be massacred. It's a very, very unlikely scenario in Nigeria. That's a silly scenario to think that's possible. So I don't think Trump is telling the truth. That said, what is being alleged because of Trump's untruthfulness here is that Trump wants to send military to Nigeria for resources and for money and for Jews, something like that. Which again, it's like, oh, here we go again. It's right back to stupid narrative number 2. But the new video that she has, I think, is pretty good. It's terrible if you just listen to what she says, and what she says is the summary. You are losing if you do that. You can still watch her videos, though, and just, how do we say, listen between the lines. The person she has on is a Nigerian scholar, and most of what he says resonates as likely true. It's funny that her takeaway is, like, how did she extract that? Of course, she extracts things by ignoring things. In the title of today's video, Kim Iversen and Candace Owens continue the Ignore India Israeli show. And I'm just going to analyze this one. I'm going to take a little break and then say hello again. And then we'll do the second part of the show, because I think it's going to be more focused on the not the Nigerian part, but in particular Candace Owens, Shashi Tharoor, and I'm going to help review the recent past couple of years of conflicts between Israel, Pakistan, and India.
You said that there's an ethnic and a religious. I mean, people are being killed. So Tell us about what is actually happening with that.
This is 2 days ago.
Right. So I think you could trace this back to sometime in 20. So what we know as Boko Haram officially kicked off in 2009, but this sort of new.
Okay, remember the Boko Haram is the name which is used. I don't know if they call themselves Boko Haram. I don't know, but the name that is used for this alleged terrorist group. I'm not sure they're only in Nigeria. I think they may be in some other African countries as well, and they are the ones that are alleged as committing the acts of atrocity or even spearheading the genocide. And this man who's being interviewed says the year 2009, key year.
Newfangled pattern of widespread, almost like random violence against very large groups of people, which doesn't really seek to accomplish a specific target, like destroy a building or something, but it's like just trying to clear out entire areas and displace entire areas of people. I would say this began sometime around 2014, 2015. And for the longest time, it has been a bit of a mystery that what exactly is the objective of this.
Okay, so 2014, 2015, it gets worse. He's questioning, what's the objective?
People, because if they claim that it's a religious thing, they're trying to get rid of Christians or African traditional religion people, and they want to set up an Islamic caliphate, which is what they claim they do, then why on earth are they killing Muslims? Because the part of the story which I guess isn't told enough, as I mentioned earlier, is that more Muslims than anyone else have died in this pattern of violence. So if say 100 people,
that could be a misleading statement. It may not be including just Nigeria. He could be including other countries. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay.
Die in this area, maybe 45 of them or 40 of them might be Christians. Those ones might be the ones to get the media coverage, but the other 60 will be Muslims, and nobody talks about it. I guess because it's inconvenient. You can't call it a genocide. You can't call it religiously motivated, because if a Muslim kills a group of Muslims, what do you call that? Yeah. So it falls into this weird, I guess, memory hole. So that has been the situation where it almost seems as if like people didn't really understand for the longest time, until I believe it was in 2022, a guy who used to be under Nigeria's former military president, Sani Abacha. This guy was essentially Abacha's chief of staff. His name is Hamza Al-Mustafa. He came out and gave an interview, which many people, myself included, didn't necessarily take that seriously at the time. But in hindsight, everything he said was absolutely true. He said that the only statistical model that these killings follow, the only thing you can use to make sense of these killings is not religion, it's not ethnic dispersion, it's not anything like that, that it's actually natural resource deposits. That these areas where these patterns of large-scale displacements happen almost invariably happen to be areas which are rich in certain resources that certain people, that certain interests want. So where you have a human settlement of 10,000 people living on top of a deposit of lithium or something, obviously this is people's ancestral land. They're not going to vacate it. If you ask them nicely, they're not going to leave it, and they're not going to sell it to you either. It's their land. So what do? You create a violent what's the term I'm looking for? But you essentially create something, a situation so violent for them that they have no choice but to leave. They become internally displaced people in Nigeria, and then the place that used to be their home then becomes this big open pit mine. And then you have all sorts of things happening. You have in Nigeria, this is the thing that happens. You can confirm this. You have planes flying from airstrips which are not officially recorded. So you can't find this airstrip on a map, but it exists. It's there.
Come on, I just took an energy shot. I know it's not good for me, but I'm making a show here, and I need to be as peppy as possible. Come on, Kim, wake up.
Deep in the middle of the country somewhere. And you have planes taking off and landing there with their transponders off. And this became such a problem that in 2023, the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority actually put out a circular. They actually put out a statement to all air operators in Nigeria. This was made public to all air operators in Nigeria. A plane was recently spotted flying with its transponder turned off, flying over the presidential villa. And that the next time such a thing happens, that the Air Force is basically going to scramble jet fighters to intercept. So basically, it was a warning that if you're flying within Nigerian airspace, you're supposed to be identifiable. So that's how bad the situation is. In that case, it was actually a passenger airliner that happened to be flying with its transponder turned off for some reason. But the point is, this has become such a widespread thing in Nigeria now that planes flying with their transponders turned off, and a large number of them have essentially conflict minerals on board, and they're going to places like Dubai. So that's what is happening. So that is actually one of the, if not the single key driver of this violence that is taking place. But I guess because that is not a story that is told very often in Nigeria, and many Nigerians, I guess the Nigerian educational system itself doesn't actually teach that Nigeria has not the solid mineral wealth that it actually does. Most people in Nigeria reflexively only think that Nigeria just has oil. Nigeria does have oil, but it has a lot more than just oil. Nigeria actually has much more natural resource wealth inland than it does at its coast, which is oil. But we don't know that. However, other people do.
Yeah. So you're saying that Boko Haram, now is it Boko Haram that's doing this? Are they the ones that are going in? They know that the resources are there. They're then destabilizing the areas, forcing people out, taking the resources and selling them to foreign countries. Is this their industry?
Short answer, we don't know. And the reason we don't know is that there are so many armed groups that are active in that.
I always trust people more if they can say they don't know. Now, of course, someone can be really, really good, and they can throw a lot of clues out there and then say they don't know, and sort of, allow you to put an idea in your own head, which is actually even more powerful than someone telling you something. But again, I could be wrong. Okay, it's not like I've watched this gentleman for hundreds of hours. I don't know him that well. I don't even know his name. But that is it's either means he's an ace at manipulation, or he genuinely doesn't know. Very, very good thing to hear.
That we actually don't know who is who any longer. So there's Boko Haram, which was the original one, and there was ISWAP, which was its splinter faction. Then there's Ansaru, and there's AQIM, which is supposedly for the Maghreb, but it's also active in West Africa.
You don't need to remember all of these, Kay. Just remember that there's a lot of confusion.
And there's JNIM, which is also now active in Nigeria, which used to be active only in the Sahel. And there's some other new ones, like Kurawas and a bunch of others. So it's got to the point in Nigeria now where when these attacks are being reported in the media, the names of the groups are no longer used. You just have very vague terms like bandits or unknown gunmen. Those are the terms that are used, because at this point, you don't actually know who these people are anymore. And a lot of these attacks take place and no single group actually takes credit for them. You just hear that 50 people died, and it's like 50 envelopes fell off a table somewhere. Nobody knows how it happened. Nobody knows why. And by the next day, everybody's back to work. It's just Tuesday.
Why? What has gone on with the government that they're not able to crack down on these groups and put an end to it?
It's a very good question. And to answer that question, we have to go back to 2014. So at the time when Boko Haram was just starting to become a fighting force that could actually hold on to territory and hold its own against a trained military force, Nigeria's then president, a guy called Goodluck Jonathan, found an effective but somewhat left field solution. So a South African mercenary group, which was known as Executive Outcomes, was hired
Executive
to
outcomes.
take care of this thing, because what was happening was the Nigerian election was coming up, and there were, I believe, three local government areas out of Nigeria's 774 that were under control of Boko Haram. So this mercenary group was called in, and they actually did an excellent job. They were very competent at their job, and they actually almost succeeded in completely driving Boko Haram out of Nigerian territory. And then the election held, and then Goodluck Jonathan lost the election, and he conceded to his challenger, who I'm sure it will not surprise you to know was US backed. So
a U.S. backed person wins the election. It was probably a close election in 2014. A U.S. backed person wins the Nigerian presidential election in 2014. Obama's president, not Trump. Obama's president, and the previous president of Nigeria appears to have had some success in driving this group out. But now, I think he goes on to say that this terrorist group, for lack of a better way of describing it, or groups get a stronger foothold and then grow after the U.S.-backed person comes into power here in Nigeria.
Buhari, or retired General Buhari, comes in on the coattails of Barack Obama, who did everything to bring him in, including
Barack Obama did everything to bring in the next president. Barack Obama. This should be the title of Kim Iverson's show. Barack Obama, whose number one foreign allegiance is India. President Obama's number one foreign allegiance and interest and time spent and negotiations was with India. It wasn't Israel. It wasn't China. It wasn't Saudi Arabia. It wasn't Indonesia. It wasn't Russia. It wasn't the EU. It wasn't Brazil. It wasn't Canada. It wasn't Mexico. It was India.
Sending him his own personal campaign manager, a guy called David Axelrod.
David Axelrod, right out of Chicago.
Right. So David Axelrod actually brought General Buhari into power.
I can't even believe Iverson played this. She obviously doesn't know how she's misleading people. She's just doing her job because she should not have played this part. We are now getting into the Barack Obama State Department. You know, there was Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in 2009. That's when the original growth of this group was. And the Deputy Secretary of State, for management, was a Indian man born in Canada, probably even born in India, but considered an American, named Richard Verma. So the Indian Richard Verma, American albeit, and Hillary Clinton, United States State Department, were there initially providing inspiration, motivation, possibly even funding black dollars. Sorry, I didn't mean that in a racial way, but black money, black market dollars for these operations. And then it seems as though the people in Nigeria had a democratic, through their elections, had people that were starting to drive these forces out, trying to get control out of them. And then Obama, U.S.-backed dollars, 2014, it appears as though there might have been some monkey business in the elections. And then another Nigerian president comes in, and then this group gets more momentum. And he's mentioning David. He should be mentioning Richard Verma again. This is because it's not U.S. It's India via the United States.
In 2015. And as soon as that happened, some very interesting things took place. So the first thing was that this contract with the mercenary group was inexplicably cancelled. Till today, no one has ever given any reason why. The only thing we know is that apparently the Americans wanted it to be cancelled, so it was cancelled.
Well, and you see, this is actually a great example. He refers to Americans, right? I mean, what else is he supposed to do, right? But, the Americans who did it don't represent me. I mean, they represent me because they're the president and they're the State Department and everything else. But they don't really think about or support me. They just happen to be the elected government. Their needs and their desires are completely divorced from mine. Similarly, I'm sure Prime Minister Modi in India, his desires are divorced from many people in India. He doesn't speak for everyone in India. There's a lot of people in India are like, what the hell is that idiot doing over there wasting our time and money with his King's English-British accent? He doesn't speak for my country. There must be at least hundreds of millions of people in India that look at this Shashi Tharoor and go, who is this ass clown? Anyways, this is just brilliant. And the way Kim Iversen refers to this video is Nigerian genocide, the truth will stun you. So there's some truth to that. It's not really a genocide. Trump isn't telling the truth. Kim Iversen's 100% right about that. But she should be extracting, so what is going on here? So are we just supposed to believe that the Indian-backed, Indian interest, money, power of the Obama administration is now the same as Trump going in there for the Jews in Israel? Oh, that's funny. Because as I'm trying to highlight here, no one will talk about the Israel-India connection and collusion. So if Trump is going into Nigeria, not because of a genocide, but because of some natural resource issue, they should be saying, well, isn't that funny because India money has already played a part in making this possible. But they don't. They won't mention that part. Or another possibility is that it's not so clean. Some people think that it might be because of going in there to help Israel or even help India, but maybe Trump is going in there to fight China. Or maybe Trump is going in there to help China for the benefit of his. Either way, it's all nonsense. None of it makes sense. The historical trajectory and context is that there is a collusion. There is a shared path that has been set up between Israel and India going all the way back to World War II. It was very clear. That is the most, if you look at maps historically, that is among the most powerful and frequent trade routes in human civilization over the last 1,000 plus years. And England knew this. That is what we should be talking about here. So I think this gentleman here is pretty much spot on, although he's not quite picking it up in the bigger context. And I get it. When you're buried in your own country, just like I'm buried in my own country, you can only see so much, right? Anyways, Kim Iversen's takeaway is nonsense. And it just continues to show that no one is willing to talk about a bigger picture, a bigger context. And I think this is what we are part of breaking here. So let me get myself reoriented a little bit, and then I'm just going to say hi. And who knows, maybe I won't even do a part 2 after you guys give me some questions and some commentary. We will see. And I don't know why I'm playing this song. This is something kind of funny about it. All right. It is, again, November 10th, 2025, episode 1401, Mark Gulak, Musiconic.live. Wow, no bass. What is wrong with that channel?
Rocky
no bass on this channel. You know, one of the reasons why when you see a raw casting channel like myself or Jonathan Cooey, PhD, play music is because there's no staff here, okay, with their own headphones trying to tune things. So when I'm playing music, it's actually my chance to get things dialed in right. And what I did here is I played the song on my second server. I have two servers where I share screens and content from, and for some reason this one just wasn't tuned properly. So the lack of professionalism sometimes can be a sign. I mean, it should be stunningly high quality, and then it should be like, wow, they really goofed up there, and that's cool. I'm going to leave this part in. So there's a ton of articles I can read here. Most of them I barely had time to read myself. This one is all the way from December 25th, 1997, New York Times. Squabble over mystery letters in United Nations mailbag. If you go to the New York Times, you will find nearly 300 indexed articles with the name Shashi Tharoor in them. Nearly 300. And I guarantee you there's only one person in the world that anyone has ever heard of or has ever been quoted in New York Times with that name, meaning all 300 almost references are the same person. There's not many people that have 300 references in the New York Times. So while we are being sleepwalked into thinking, we should be focusing on what little midgets like Ben Shapiro and that other guy with the moppy hair, I don't even know his name. It doesn't even matter. Who cares about these tiny little, pro-Israeli or anti-Israeli podcasters? No, we should be looking at the most important names of historical consequence, according to this record. Now, it's not that the New York Times, everything the New York Times says is truth, but it is true that these things were said in the New York Times. And if you were to ever go to a congressional hearing, if you open up, hey, this is what Tucker Carlson said, this is what Ben Shapiro said, people are going to laugh at you. Okay? Even if they ever did once in a while say something truthful, which I don't think they don't, but even if they did, they will laugh at you. But you can open the New York Times, even though most of what the New York Times says is not really truthful either, at least it's historical. It's a historical record that can be used. It is what it is, okay? And there's just a phenomenal amount of controversy in the late 1990s about India and Pakistan, about the United Nations, about how, I'm telling you what, there some of the most shocking things that I've read here, that India's culture is the best template available for a future global government. The United Nations is looking at India favorably in the late 1990s as a model about how to get a global government to work. And there's debates about how much Hinduism plays into this. How many people talk about Hinduism? I don't know much about Hinduism, all right? I don't know much about it. But if you look at the New York Times and others are always speak incredibly favorably about it. Hinduism is never a problem. Who knows? Maybe I've been wrong about everything, Maybe it's the best. Maybe it's just the best. But we have Christian extremists and Christian terrorists, and we have Muslim terrorists and Muslim extremists, and we have the Jewish extremists, and we have these. But there's never a Hindu extremist. They're just cooking saag paneer all day and happy, I guess, and can be trusted to run the United Nations. And just victims, just cleaning their rugs and getting attacked. This is pre-9/11. This is the communications director of the United Nations. This is the man who somehow was with Klaus Schwab and Kofi Annan in New York City on the morning of 9/11, watching the first plane fly into the Twin Towers. How could I have gone 5+ years on my program and never mentioned a name until like 2 weeks ago? You know why? Because the more disconnected I become from all the rest of the controlled narratives and the meddlers and so on, the more I'm like, wow, here's a big name that no one seems to be talking about. And of course, when you realize that Shashi Tharoor, who's probably the biggest voice right now in India next to Prime Minister Modi on India's relations with Israel, which, again, quoting the title here, Candace Owens and Kim Iversen will never mention, when you realize he was the most followed person of India up until Prime Minister Modi in 2014, he was the communications director. He was almost the right-hand man of Kofi Annan for many years. He was collaborating with Jeffrey Sachs going all the way back to the 1990s. He's with Jeffrey Sachs on a Charlie Rose show in 2003. He's on nearly 300 references in the New York Times. He's talking about how India and Hinduism is going to provide the future model of how to cooperate. He's being caught up in all of these United Nations mailbag squabbles in the New York Times in the 1990s. And of course, you have the United Nations curious role with respect to Iraq weapons inspections in the 1990s, and chemical weapons and alleged biological weapons and Saddam Hussein, and of course Scott Ritter, who himself was the UN weapons inspector who pops up lately last several years after COVID-19. And of course, he's referenced in the book Germs, September 9th, 2001, and he even winds up in Harvey Weinstein's magazine Talk multiple times in the first and the second issue in 1999, a magazine which promoted Hillary Clinton. I think a magazine that was made to get Hillary Clinton to be the senator of New York State in time for 9/11 or whatever the activities were planned to be. Hillary Clinton, who was the head of the United States State Department when the United States State Department was visiting
Nigeria
to set up Boko Haram, just as this Nigerian gentleman was talking about the other day on the Kim Iversen show. What you need to do, though, is you need to realize that just about everybody right now is being paid to mislead you and waste your time, and mine as well, which is why it took me so long to start to integrate in the name of one of the most important people in the world whose name never even crossed my attention span for the last 5+ years. And it never would have if I still paid any attention or mind to the rest of the people that supposedly had all of this great advice. There are people who say I don't listen to things. They ignore their emails. And you know what? I do, because you haven't earned it. There are people who have forwarded me hundreds, if not thousands of emails. And you know what? Somehow they too never got to mention the name Shashi Tharoor. And that is exactly precisely why I don't listen to so many people. Who has time to send me that much shit? That's the whole story. That's it. That is the perfect example. And it's not that I'm smarter or whatever. It's just that there's only very few people who have proven themselves worthy enough and trustworthy enough that I know they're not going to continue to say, you got to look at Jeffrey Epstein. You got to look at the Jews. You got to look at Israel. You got to focus on the British crown. You know, it's like, how could you miss this name? Anyways. And this is kind of the common thread of a bunch of the stuff I just reposted here. There's a good chance that terrorist attack, the one, was it Palhegam? I know I'm mispronouncing it. Was probably also a false flag. I mean, why would Pakistan just all of a sudden say, "Hey, let's kill some tourists who are Hindu"? It just doesn't make any sense. Let's just walk up to the hornet's nest, okay, and stick a pencil in it, and then laugh. I showed those hornets. I must have killed at least one hornet. Why would they? Again, evidence is no replacement for thinking. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see out there. You know, of course, how do you pull off a false flag? You show evidence. That's why you have a false flag. You precisely have a false flag so you have evidence to show, period. So limiting yourself to evidence means you limit yourself to false flag seduction. That is why I keep saying evidence is not a replacement for thinking. All right. Okay, let me see. What's the other title here? Yeah. Kofi Annan. Kofi Annan, by the way, is Ghanan. Just saying, in case anybody knows anyone from Ghana. Just throwing that one out there. Okay. Christie, strategy attentions designed to enrage the normies. It enrages me. Oh, gosh darn it. Did I just close that window there? I was supposed to minimize that window here. India is the Commonwealth of Nations. Thank you. And in fact, a shout out to Jonathan Cooey for having mentioned this earlier. The Commonwealth of Nations. Let's open up a Wikipedia page and get the formal definitions of what a Commonwealth of Nation is here. Commonwealth of Nations. Wikipedia was just a dream. But the Commonwealth of Nations, often referred to as the British Commonwealth, or simply the Commonwealth, is an international association of 56 member states, the vast majority of which are former territories of the British Empire from which it developed. Sorry, let me get myself back on the screen here. They are connected through their use of the English language and cultural and historical ties. The chief institutions of the association are the Commonwealth Secretariat, which focuses on intergovernmental relations, and the Commonwealth Foundation, which focuses on non-governmental relations between member nations. Numerous organizations are associated with and operate within the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth dates back to the first half of the 20th century, with the decolonization of the British Empire through increased self-governance of its territories. It was created as the British Commonwealth of Nations through the Balfour Declaration at the 1926 Imperial Conference and formalized by the United Kingdom through the Statute of Westminster in 1931. The Balfour Declaration is so often referred to by people who say the United States is owned by Israel. Israel controls the United States. It's all about Israel. It's all about the Jews. Look at the Balfour Declaration. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the Balfour Declaration did more than just Israel. Oh, maybe the most populous country in the world plays a role. You know, the one that's on track to have the world's largest GDP within 10 or 15 years. India. Funny, no one mentions it. You know, there are territories in India that most people have never heard of that are bigger than Israel. The head of the Commonwealth is Charles III. Okay, we don't need to hear this stuff here. So its headquarters is in London. Boy, isn't that amazing? So we have this Oxford, London-educated, London-bred Shashi Tharoor as this key representative of India. At least Prime Minister Modi is culturally Indian. Tharoor, I mean, he puts on the Indian attire every once in a while. I think he's just kind of playing dress-up. There's probably behind the scenes some conflict between Tharoor and Modi that, again, because we're still kind of new to highlighting the importance of this, most people just don't talk about. Conceptual origins. Prime Ministers, yeah. So you can read about this. So this is not to be accidentally, how would you say, confused with United Nations. I'm sure that there's a lot of overlap. But this should be spoken about. India, and I don't think Pakistan is in here. Let's see here. So, no, again, I always go to the wrong keyboard here. Control F. Let's see here. New members must, quote, as a general rule, unquote, have a direct constitutional link to an existing member. In most cases, this is due to being a former colony of the United Kingdom, but some have links to other countries, either exclusively or more directly. So Bangladesh to Pakistan, Samoa to New Zealand, Papua New Guinea to Australia, Singapore to Malaysia. So Pakistan here. Oh, look at this one. So Nigeria was suspended between November 11th, 1995 and 1999 following its execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa in the eve of the 1995 CHOGM, whatever that was. Pakistan was the second country to be suspended, October 18th, 1999. Wow, that's odd. So Pakistan was suspended before 9/11 because Shashi Tharoor said that the United States relationship with Pakistan was a big problem on 9/11. Huh. Isn't it odd that many of the lying, fake, dishonest, anti-American, stab you in the back citizen journalists only talk about Pakistan in the light of, hijackers, which probably never even existed, or the Pakistani man, Pakistani mystery man, Imran Awan, who might have actually just been Indian. That's interesting. It's almost like they're all paid by interest from India or the Commonwealth of Nations. And by the way, the Pakistani mystery man probably having his allegiance to India. Of course, now we get back to the Hillary Clinton State Department, the Hillary Clinton emails, Hillary Clinton, Deputy Secretary of State Richard Verma. Oh my goodness, this is, of course, going to tie into me. The Commonwealth's longest suspension came to an end on May 22, 2004, when Pakistan's suspension was lifted following the restoration of the country's constitution. Pakistan was suspended for a second time, far more briefly, for 6 months, November 2007, when Musharraf called a state of emergency. So this is odd. So again, thank you, Christy. So just through a quick review, and we've barely reviewed 3% of it, okay? We can already see stuff regarding the history of the Commonwealth of Nations that ties in with the things that apparently Candace Owens and Kim Iversen won't mention regarding Pakistan and Israel and Nigeria and Pakistan. See how easy it is? And the way you get here, The way you get here is by realizing that people have so much time. I don't need more information. Okay, I need financial support. And through and what I need are people who provide information which is unique and inspiring, intriguing, enlightening, and not constantly taking me right back to the controlled nonsense. Because no one else has gotten here. Okay, so that is quite interesting. Former British Empire, they just changed name. They didn't disband. Powerful men behind them just handed their power to Nehru and his band with no strings attached. Okay, did anyone besides me notice Thoreau has a distinct... Oh, he grew up in London. It's... Again, I mean, he's part Indian, ethnically. I don't think he's 100% Indian. And he has really more of a British accent. So Thoreau, does he really 100% embody the needs of most people of India? I suspect not. It's part of, he's probably among the most powerful people, though, in this group. But again, there's people that he probably reports to. There's a 2011 story regarding Shashi Tharoor's wife in her death, which I haven't looked into the details, but many have said that was no accident that killed her. So there's some wild stuff happening here, which allows for an incredible richness, incredible breadth of stories to be told, because we all need to learn this stuff. Thank you, Reginald. Thank you. Great reminder. Cardinal Turkson is from Ghana. So Cardinal Turkson, who almost became Pope, is from Ghana. And the I don't know how many other directors we've had, but the president of the United Nations for many years, Kofi Annan, was from Ghana. I don't know what that means, but it's just like, I don't know many people from Ghana for whatever reason. And that seems to play in here. I read, though, interesting enough, that the United States was the only nation that voted against Kofi Annan becoming a director, president, if you will, of the United Nations, at least in the first vote. Maybe when it came time for his re-election to run the United Nations in 2003, it was a different story. For whatever that's worth. Has he been knighted? I'm pretty sure. That's a great question, though. That could go either way, though, right, Christy? I mean, sometimes it would just be a little bit too suspicious. But I'll live Google that one there. Let's see here. Google. I got to be careful. If I type in Google wrong, who knows what can pop up on the screen here. Let's see here. Shashi Tharoor knighted. Shashi Tharoor was not knighted in his British name, in the British sense, but was awarded the Chevalier de la Légion d'Honneur, Knight of the Legion of Honor, by France in February 2024. This is France's highest civilian honor. And it was conferred in recognition of his efforts to deepen Indo-French ties and his commitment to international peace. Well, that's odd because it is the Israeli ambassador to Israel that is the one that's being used to comment on Israeli support for India and its plight in recent terror attacks here. Let me see if I can go to, my content. Yeah, so this is the Israeli ambassador to France. This is September 9th, 2025.
You said India and Israel face similar problems from across the border. We also have problems on both sides of our border, but more from Pakistan, the Islamic terrorism.
Interviewed by someone in India.
We recently launched an Operation Sindoor, if I don't know whether... Yes,
and you can see he's wearing the pin, the Israeli-India pin on his lapel. And Operation Sindoor, by the way, The name Sindoor comes from the red marking, which are on women from India who are married. I guess it's applied at the time that they are married and to identify being married as opposed to maybe a wedding ring. Maybe they still do the wedding ring too. I don't know. But it is a nod to the fact that the terror attack in Paleham, I know I'm not saying that right. I look at the word, I want to say phlegm, but I know it's not phlegm. In April of 2025, this year, where the terrorists lined up and killed Hindu men, not the women. They allowed the women to go home to talk about the terrorist attack. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so the Operation Sindoor is the name of India with the assistance of Israel's response in the counterattack on Pakistan in response to that terrorist attack, alleged, on like April 23rd or something like that of this year.
You heard about it. So how do you look at India's response, and do you think that's the apt way? And did Israel and India are cooperating in this sector? Did Israel cooperate in Operation Sindoor?
בזמן הזה שאנחנו מדברים פה בהודו,
As we speak now, right now,
התרחשה בישראל מתקפת טרור נוראית.
there was just a terror attack in Israel, a terrible terror attack
In Jerusalem, in our capital
in
city.
our capital city.
שני טרוריסטים נכנסו לאוטובוס
Two terrorists boarded a bus,
ופשוט ירו לכל עבר,
shot at the passengers,
רצחו 6 אנשים
killed 6 people,
ופצעו עוד 10.
This interview happens a day before the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
injured another 10.
וכששמעתי את זה נזכרתי בטבח
And when I heard this, I remembered the massacre in Pahalgam. I
שאתם
was
עברתם.
reminded of the massacre in Pahalgam.
והטבח שאתם עברתם הזכיר לי את הטבח שאנחנו עברנו בשביל
So Israel helps India in its response counterattack to this alleged, or I should say, as described, terror attack from Pakistan and Muslim extremists. It's always a religious extremist against India, against Hindus specifically, and I guess one Christian was killed as well. He goes on to talk about the very kind, the flowering, the flourishing relationships between Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister Modi, about how Israel and India have a shared path. They are both dealing with Muslim extremism. India supports Israel because India feels Israel has the same problem with Hamas and attacks from Gaza. I'm sure there's a lot of false flags here, okay? I don't really know who's attacking who. But let's at least throw out there that this is their narrative, okay? Now, whether or not their narrative is 100% honest and exactly what's going on, I don't need to comment on that. And I suspect that there's elements of false flags here ongoing. I mean, again, evidence is no substitute for thinking. And just the nature of whatever the supposed terrorist attack was from the Pakistan or this Muslim extremist group against Hindus, as silly as that was, again, just go along with their narrative here, okay? Their narrative, as much as you can see through it, still makes more sense than Israel killing Charlie Kirk because Benjamin Netanyahu has money invested in pedophile groups. You see what I'm trying to say here? The Charlie Kirk assassination stories. Oh, it's about snipers and drug running through Hamas and the Clinton Foundation. Those stories are so absolutely ludicrous. And this story also has elements of ludicrousness to it. Yet it is at least semi-more plausible than what we're being fed about Charlie Kirk right now. So even if this is still full of false flags, Why is Candace Owens and Kim Iversen not allowing this interpretation to get any light of day? No truth is coming out about Charlie Kirk. Now, if you go, instead of looking at it as trying to, instead of you just going along with what they're saying, you go, okay, so clearly right now, see, this is how I extracting, this is how I think and how I do my research. Clearly, there is a lot of money right now in having the Charlie Kirk thing be only about Israel and to never, ever, 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 ever mention India. There's a lot of money behind it. So where's the money come from? Where's the biggest pile of money? What is it, Costco? Is it an old investor who cashed out early in Blockbuster stock? Where's the money? Is it some weed dealer in Framingham, Massachusetts? Is it a Jewish movie director? Where's the money come from for all of this? So the more every time Candace Owens does another 30-second video short on YouTube, I have more ammunition and more motivation and more proof. She is leading me to this. It's wonderful. When I see the money go towards controlled narratives that won't even entertain other possibilities, even though they're wrong, at least there's some shred of possibility they could be right. So, in a way, Candace Owens is helping us because she's paid so loudly to lie. I love it. That is how you do research. Evidence, and again, evidence is no substitute for thinking. So, and this guy, anyways, this is the foreign minister of France, and it makes sense that now that the foreign minister of France, because France is where the closest thing of knighthood has come for Shashi Tharoor. Now, Shashi Tharoor is incredibly critical of the United States. Okay, that's fine. He's not American. Not American. Okay, that's cool. He can say whatever he wants. But his sons, for some odd reason, chose to live in the United States. Which, again, if the United States sucks, if the United States is filled with awful, racist, stupid people, if the United States is filled with all this hedonism and worthlessness and evil and sin and stupidity and has no future, why the hell would you encourage your two sons to grow up in the United States? Either he hates his children, or there's a reason they're in the United States growing up. Washington Post, one of their top editors, is Shashi Tharoor's son, writing articles influencing United States public opinion about things such as the coronavirus coming out of a laboratory in China. I would never encourage. Oh, jeez, it just drives me bananas. Okay. Hey, Pete. It was the Charlie hoax. Maybe it was a JFK hoax. Pete says something very controversial here, which I think deserves a response. One pattern, maybe it's not a rule, but this is a pattern, is hoax assassinations get a lot of attention, and real assassinations go unspoken of. Brandy Vaughn's assassination was greeted with never being mentioned again and having her name spelled wrong on the Children's Health Defense site and never being spoken of again. Tony Bark's assassination was greeted with dismissing her ideas, never mentioning her again, and hijacking her work. McKinley's assassination was met with, well, it's just too bad that we had a crazy guy coming from another country. From top to bottom, I have tons of names. Real assassinations go ignored. Fake assassinations, such as Charlie Kirk or the attempted assassination on Trump, which I think more and more was more likely, more elements of hoax in that than not. Nonstop talk. So then there's JFK. I don't know what happened with JFK, okay, but maybe that's a different story. But you have to admit his wife took it pretty easily. It is a lot easier to get away with an assassination if you stage it. You arrest a person, you lock them up in a cell somewhere, and you tell the family that they're still alive. I don't know. You can mess up an FBI and CIA investigation if there isn't really a death. And maybe that's why the JFK assassination, of course, he would be dead by now of old age, but maybe that's why it was never solved. You solve it by just never having it in the first place. If you're going to kill him anyways, you know what? The safest thing to do is to just, I don't know, take him somewhere and lock him up until he dies. I'm not saying that happened. He was probably shot, but I'm open to that possibility, as Peter says, because the rule, it's not a rule. Rule means 100%, no exceptions. The trend is real assassinations get buried and are never spoken of. Fake assassinations are spoken of all the time, over and over again, and no one can solve them. Whoops, we just don't know what Kash Patel is doing with the evidence about Charlie Kirk. No idea. Everyone's just making all these mistakes. No one died at Jonestown. Wow. I don't know. But it's easy. But again, even if this didn't happen, you have to admit, it is easier to get away with an assassination if it was staged than if there was a real. When you really kill someone, you have survivors that are mad. You have survivors that won't let go. They're a dog with a bone. They are not letting go. They're going to keep on fighting. They're going to keep on digging. They will spend all of their resources and then some creating awareness. When you really kill people, killing people is easy. Physically killing someone is easy, okay? But getting away with it is hard. It's really hard. You know, if you take care of one person, what are you going to do? Just keep killing more and more people? Everyone that questions it? It creates this butterfly effect, this cascade that never ends and just creates more and more mad people. Killing people is easy. But getting away with it is especially at that level, almost impossible. Unless you know ahead of time that you can keep it very quiet. Very quiet. So if you have a situation like no relatives, okay, you kill them in another country where no one's going to see it. You have to do it in a way that you cut off, any possibility of that going any further. You look at the, oh my goodness, oh boy, I get so many names in my head sometimes. I just, and Lisa Kilborn. You know, I mean, what happens with her? You know, her father then dies of cancer within the next year. Her mom gets locked up in an institution. She goes crazy. And her sister is too terrified to ever respond. That's the one that died in 2002 in Gabon in Africa. You know, just a weird plane crash where the other three people on the plane walked away somehow. The one that worked with so many of the people that were involved with 9/11. The one that I think was starting to realize and worked with... I don't know, there's so many names here, but I think we're starting to realize that Ebola, the whole stories of Ebola being, making some zoonotic leap from primates was just a bullshit story. Subi, Eric Garcetti, who became Indian ambassador, and his deputy mayor, Jeffrey Gorel, did biggest testing and jab center with Sean Penn. Oh my goodness, really? Do I have to write this name down? Is this a name that's going to be fruitful, Subi? Eric Garcetti. Eric Garcetti. Did he become a U.S. ambassador to India? Let me type in that name here. Let me see if Eric. Oops. Eric Garcetti. Yep, there we go. So from the comments here, Eric Garcetti, he was an American politician, diplomat who served as the United States ambassador in India from 2023 to 2025, 42nd mayor of Los Angeles, 2013-2022. So he was a U.S. ambassador to India after, 1 or 2 after Richard Verma. And as the excellent chat came in from Subi, thank you so much. He did the testing center and the jab center with Sean Penn. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Oh, man. Free show. You just gave me another free show. By the way, if I don't follow up on it, don't take offense to it, okay? I mean, that's one day of archiving right there. You see, you just gave me one day of. I'm saying thank you. Yeah, that is a really fantastic chat message. But there's only so much time in the day. Wow. So India has enormous political influence in the United States. There are at least 5, 6, or 7 congressmen and women right now and senators in the United States who were born in India. I'm not saying that they're Indian. I'm saying they were born in India. I think there's even more if you include the ones that were born in the United States by the skin in their teeth. Okay. Now, normally I wouldn't think too much about that. Many Indian Americans, they have good incomes. They tend to be law-abiding. I never really would have thought much about it, okay? But what really got me thinking was the one who was congressman, and I think he's trying to become senator, in Illinois, Raja Krishnamurthy, who goes all the way back with Obama when Obama was still in his 20s regarding helping Obama run for office. And Raja Krishnamurthy became the head of the United States Congressional Subcommittee regarding United States, concerns and cooperation with the Chinese Communist Party, which is the loudest conflict of interest I have ever seen in the United States, possibly history. How is it possible that someone born in India, which is it considers China to be its longest running mortal enemy, how is it possible that someone like that can be on the U.S. committee, a U.S. government congressional committee regarding China, United States cooperation with China? How is that even possible? Now, that's not saying that he did anything wrong, but there are some potential conflicts of interest that you just shouldn't have. Okay? Similar. And I love this example because it's comical. If Putin had his daughter move to the United States and become a U.S. citizen, even if she loved America, even if she flew the flag, even if she said her dad's a jerk, should she be allowed to be elected to office and then run the economic recovery of Ukraine? Excuse me, I got itchy nose. No. Even if every measurement suggested that she could do it and not be, moved by her familial relation. Just no. Sorry, there's 300 million Americans. You can't do that. Sorry. No offense, little Putin, you can't do it. My goodness. What the heck happened? Anyways, and Raja Krishnamurthy. And then I see all of the constant alarms being raised about China control and China intrusion into the United States. Okay, I'm looking for it. I don't see any. There are no people born in China running U.S. offices. That's not to say there can't be control of the United States from China through other means. But if there is one thing that would pop up to the top of the list, okay, if you are an elected official in control of major functions of the United States government and born in China, that would be very, very concerning. That would raise the alarm. But there are none. There just aren't any. And then Jayanta Bhattacharya, who is right now the head of the United States National Institutes of Health, and I think in some ways kind of steering the entire Health and Human Services. Health and Human Service, because I don't think, poor Bobby, he's in the Truman Show and he couldn't find his way out of a wet paper bag. Okay? He is being run by other people. He's probably being run by someone who was born in India. How is that possible that the largest agency, the largest pile of money in the United States government is being run by an Indian national? How is that possible? But it is. That's exactly what's happening right now. So let's go back to some of these other videos that I've posted here. And, an hour 30. I think I'm gonna, there's a million more things I want to do, but I think that is enough for me to have gotten the ball rolling this morning here. So if you go back to the videos that I've shared, this one is the May 13th, 2025. Now, this one is only, 5 days after Charlie Kirk's comments that the United States should not get involved with India and Pakistan conflicts. You can't get a good, you'll have to actually go to the video title yourself and look at the thumbnail picture. In this video, as a matter of fact, I can play it. Okay, I think playing it will be pretty powerful here. This is May 13th, 2025. And they include clips in here of Trump and of course talking about how Trump has it all wrong and regarding the conflict of what's going on. But there's a still shot that they use in here.
How do you see what Donald Trump has done?
That I used on the title of the video, okay? Here we go. So let me zoom in on this. So this is Shashi Tharoor over here. Oh, come on. Make it full screen. Shashi Tharoor is on the far right. He's the one that's being interviewed regarding India and Operation Sindoor. They're getting assistance from Israel and their response to the terrorist attack, which just happened at the end of April 2025, from Pakistan, allegedly from Muslim extremists in Pakistan. Allegedly from Muslim extremists in Pakistan. And they are having big conflict with what Trump said. Now, remember, Charlie Kirk also said that the United States shouldn't get involved in this mess on May 8th, 2025. Trump is making comments here that he doesn't want the United States involved in this either. And India is having a temper tantrum about it. And Israel is also having a temper tantrum about it. But I can't help but notice that while Trump is being spoken to about and inquired about wanting the United States not to get involved, and okay, look, I'm not going to be a Trump apologist, okay? I admit I voted for him at the second time, not the first time. I fully admit that I know people who are very deep into raising awareness of the drug overdose epidemic in the United States of America who have worked directly with Trump. I'm only one person away from Trump in some ways. I have friends who have been to meetings with him and shaken hands with him. That's the truth. If I really wanted to pull some strings, I might be able to get to even meet with Trump. I've never tried, but I might be able to. I would rather them speak for me, though, because they already have those connections. So, I give credit when credit's due, and I cut Trump down when he deserves to be cut down, which is awful plenty. In this case, I totally agree. The United States should not get involved. We have so many problems at home to deal with. I just had told you like an hour and a half ago, Trump's lying about Nigeria having a genocide. So, look, I'm not apologizing for the guy. But in this case, I happen to totally agree. Yet, in this case, why? Why are there 3 Indian people in the video? Why is it that Jayanta Bhattacharya is the guy whose half of his face is right there? Jayanta Bhattacharya, who is among the top colluders of what, Robert Malone? Jayanta Bhattacharya, who's working with Jessica Rose at Brownstone Institute, denying the role of the opioid epidemic in the United States of America, where most of the drugs really come from India, not China. None of them willing to talk about it. Is this a nod that Jayanta Bhattacharya is way more than just some shitty economist from Stanford who has is running the National Institutes of Health, who doesn't even know how to shower properly and get the scent of a food off his body before running the National Institutes of Health in the United States of America? An Indian national is effectively in charge of the largest pile of money in the United States of America, while another Indian national was running the subcommittee in Congress regarding interests of the Chinese Communist Party or responding to them. And no one talks about this? It's just Jared Kushner and pedophiles and Netanyahu? Now, what I've provided, because, again, evidence is no substitute for thinking, okay? What I've provided here and have been providing is not absolute refutable evidence that India controls and runs the United States entirely, all right? Absolutely not. Evidence is evidence, okay? You have to take it what you will, and you have to combine it with your thinking skills. But in this case, the nature of the evidence leads to a narrative which is far more plausible, possible, and less ridiculous than the one that is currently being pushed out there elsewhere. And everyone that wants to say that it's all about Israel and only about Israel, well, what do you think Israel does with all that money? How much weaponry was given to Israel, which Israel is now using to help India in its responses to Muslim extremism? Think of how sweet it is if you were to be ambassador, or I should say ambassador to India for the United States of America, working within the United States State Department, how much better it looks, how much flexibility you get, options you get by helping India militarily by giving money and weapons to Israel. You can get all the Americans mad at the Jews. You can have the Democrat Party celebrate within the United States of America that the Republican Party is dealing with Nazis right now, and you can still get what you want. And Israel can do it because they can just say, well, we're being attacked by terrorists too. And maybe the Muslim extremists are doing it. But just like the 9/11 narrative, and heck, Shashi Tharoor was in New York City for 9/11. He said so himself. He showed up at the memorial. Very strange time, not long after this whole dispute started. In late May of 2025, where maybe it was Muslim hijackers, crazy Muslim hijackers, but Muslim hijackers could have hijacked 20 planes and flown them into the Twin Towers. They would still be there. Damaged, they could have been repaired. They came down because there were explosives. So the Twin Towers did not come down. They did not come down because of Muslim extremist hijackers, unless Muslim extremists also planted the explosives. I don't have many in my small social circle. I don't have many Muslims. Again, I need no reason to be an apologist for anybody, but I'm not going to have people blamed for things which clearly they just, again, thinking. Just think about it. Just use your brain. I know you're smart people. Anyways, I'm going to scoot along. That was a much longer show than I wanted. I barely scraped the surface of what I wanted to get into. You guys are great. Wow. Holy Jesus. Oh, my goodness, Christy. I got to follow up with me, Christy, on that stuff. Hello, Carrie. Corporate America created subsidiaries in India in the 80s for cheaper labor. Yeah, and India executives moved. I also, Carrie, a great comment, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there's videos out there about how India, about how migrants were being impacted in India. And I'm like, wait. So India needs H-1B visas in the United States for their financial success. So why are people going to India? So India is hiring cheap foreign labor en masse from Bangladesh and elsewhere. They're basically importing their own slaves to do their dirty work, dig holes, clean houses, and everything else. While they Not all, but I bet you a few can get a fake degree in India and then come to the United States and make $150,000 to $300,000 a year, paying next to nothing on a visa, replacing an American worker. And then all of the Indian officials or Indian nationals in the United States, they all have their temper tantrum and get pissed off when, Charlie Kirk and Trump are saying we should be cutting back specifically on H-1B visas to India. Instead of this getting any light, it all turns into about Jews in Israel. Yeah. Oh, graduates like me as well, Carrie. Good to have you. Good to have you here. Of course, I didn't know any of this in 2003 or 4. I remember I was working at the old building in Cambridge, which used to be the used to be an NSF building or something like that, National Sciences Foundation. I was an engineer on a product at EMC called PowerPath. Previous to that, ATF, not alcohol, tobacco, actually application transfer failover. But anyways, I went through the whole thing as well. I didn't know what I was in the middle of. You probably didn't either. So anyways, that's a lot of stuff, guys. Wow. India was way more somewhat aligned with the USSR during Cold War. You know what, Peter? Did you know that there was a faction in India that was aligned with Nazi Germany? Even the Wikipedia page has to admit it. There were millions and millions in India which were aligned with Nazi Germany in World War II, in spite of what the British Empire wanted. Now, I'm sure, again, there's all levels of psyops there. That's only half the story. I get it. But I don't see that coming out. Holy shit. I just realized? Didn't they get the swastika from India? I cannot say anything else that can top that to end the show. Have a good one.